we often talk about, and I thought this was a great discussion around how great the
Mhm.
Texans are, and we have a really positive outlook on them. I want to put in the context of the AFC and the rest of the league, because I think I forgot who said it, probably multiple people at this point, but think about how many quarterbacks Tom Brady prevented from winning a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
multiple Super Bowls. And I think CJ Stroud has a Tom Brady-esque character in Patrick Mahomes in his division, where we can be as high on the Texans as we want to be, but especially in the context of the AFC and all of these
Mhm.
talented young quarterbacks, it's not going to be a cakewalk when you put it, when you put it
Yeah.
into perspective. So, maybe talk about how you see them fit into the AFC South and then the AFC writ large, given that it's the conference of really talented young quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I think honestly what CJ Stroud has right now is Tom Brady's kind of path to the playoffs every year. Very similar. Like we look at some people look at Trevor Lawrence like he's a franchise guy. I personally do not. I don't think he showed enough to be the franchise guy. I think he's got a year that this next year is going to be massive for him. Does he have all the talent? Yes. Does he make really bad decisions with situational football? Yes. Did they lose weapons this year? Yes. And did he play injured last year? Yeah, he did. But the way that he plays, I'm just like, dude, if you take Trevor Lawrence out of the equation and what people think he can be, if he ends up not being who they think he's going to be as a good player, he has a Tom Brady New England Patriots type of path to the playoffs every single year. You have the Titans who are not that good. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars who obviously crumbled last year. Who else is? And then they have the Colts. The Colts, like, is Anthony Richardson going to be that guy? We don't know, but like nobody's really shown us anything. Tom Brady had the really bad Miami Dolphins every year, the Jets who some years were decent, some years were not, and then they had the Bills who were really bad for most of the time, except for when Fitz Magic showed up a little bit and made some plays. Like you want to be in a division that's bad or has the least amount of guarantees as possible. And I look at them, I look at the AFC South very much like the NFC South. Like the Falcons and Kirk Cousins have the best path to the playoffs. And my whole thing is get yourself the best path to the playoffs as often as possible. Let the other teams beat themselves up to try to get there with the pressure of what it takes. Like look at the Chiefs, dude. Their path to the playoffs was not easy. Their path in the playoffs was not easy. They were a lot of road games. And so Joe Burrow wasn't a factor last year because he didn't play most of the season. Let those teams duke it out. And I think that's what CJ Stroud kind of has is like you could be the Texans and lock up the number 1 seed simply for the fact that your schedule was the easiest. And it's all about what seed do you get in the playoffs? Can you be that team? Can you get home field advantage? Like can you set yourself up that way? And I think looking in the horizon like the Texans have the best chance to do that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
out of any team in the AFC. You look at the NFC or the AFC North, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland are going to just kill each other all year long. And then the Steelers might squeak out a win or two. Then you
Mm-hmm.
look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have Harbaugh coming to town, right? Like, who knows what that's going to look like? You have the Raiders who are going to get better next year. And then who else is in their division? And then you have the Broncos. The Broncos, like, who knows? Peyton could be fired after this year. They could get a quarterback that changes their stuff. Like, who knows? I would not be shocked to see Sean Payton out there next year. So Mahomes has been the beneficiary of the same exact thing for most of the time. Their division has been weak as shit. So
Yeah.
maybe they're not so weak, and maybe Mahomes doesn't get the same run. Like who knows? But I just think CJ Stroud has this wild like alignment for things that could go well for his career with a weak division, with the right staff, the guys that are willing to build around him. And I hope they keep it together for a long time because they're fun to watch.
Yeah. Two things you said there. I remember we had a conversation probably sometime in season where we were ogling over the AFC South a little bit, because at the time they had Richardson, who was playing well. Shane Steichen came on to turn into a really head coach this year, even when they didn't have
Yeah.
Richardson. Will Levis was young and exciting, and obviously Mike Vrabel is a great coach. Was a great coach for the Titans, and then you had Trevor Lawrence, who I think a lot of people still, like you mentioned, like Trevor Lawrence. So it's sort of this division of young, promising quarterbacks. But now, as we sit here in the offseason, you have to look at it and be like, what's the sure thing? And the sure thing
Yeah.
is CJ Stroud is good, D'Amico Ryans is good, Bobby Slowick is good, and all of these other teams, you can be excited about them, but they also have massive question marks
Yep.
at all of the key positions. And so when you forecast in the next 10 to 15 years, you probably just take the sure thing, which is sure, maybe Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen figure it out, but we know right now that CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans are kind of a power. And so
Yep.
they probably have the easiest path, like you mentioned.
Totally. And I mean, look, dude, the NFL is competitive. Like, you can't slack on anything. But if anything, if the course of time says anything, good head coach paired with a good quarterback, a lot of good things happen. And right now in that division, that's the only one that you can bank on right now. And I don't know, man. I'm excited about the Texans. I think they got a lot of exciting things coming. I think it's really cool to see them gel this early with how young their team was. And the sky is the limit. Now, look, they have a lot of expectations. They do have a target on their back now. They are not going into the year as this unknown. So people will be a little bit more ready, but they're going to be better too. And I like the offseason additions they've made. I'm really excited to see who they pick up in the draft. I would not be shocked knowing D'Amico that he does not have his eyes on a guy like Peyton Wilson if he falls to him. I think he'd be a massive fit, could change the game for them on defense, or, well, not change it, but add to them. So I'm excited.